All right, man, has it been a little while since a guy got out and hunted artifacts. And I am on the board pretty quick with a couple decent little finds here. Broke, of course, had to be broke, but nice enough to leave me the tip. Kind of a clunky thing. And then I just spotted this right as I was turning on the camera. And looky there. Huh. Now that's an odd little deal. Look at that little ear coming off that thing on that one side. I kind of like that. What I'm really after is some pottery, though. Had a hankering to just do some studying on some pottery and design and maybe learn a little bit about the ages of things. Look at here. What's this? Another flake. This little spot right here I've never really hunted before, but probably should pay attention to it. Anyway, we'll just continue on, and as I see stuff, I'll be filming it. But yeah, I'm really hoping for some nice, clean pottery. The design has a lot to teach us. So wish me luck. Check that out, and got a nice chunk of pottery out of it. Oh yeah, I want you guys to see this. Check this out. It's like somebody left it for me to find. Alright, somebody did leave it. This is a buddy's permission that he allows me to hunt. And he likes an arrowhead. A nice one. He's not so interested in the rest of this stuff, and so he picked up a fine little group of pottery and some chert, and he left it out here for me. So let's go through a little bit of this. It's a nice piece. I'm not going to take all of this because I think there's some little fellers that hunt this field from time to time. But I'm looking for good design like that on some pottery. Something we can learn a little bit from, maybe. Maybe we can get a couple different types out of here. Pretty good, because I ain't spotted near this much. Look at this. Well, that's a near point. He's peaky. Alright, let's see, here's a piece of gray chert with some quartz crystal. You did pretty good, but I think we're going to leave this for the next feller to come along and sift through and enjoy. I'm going to see if I can find some of my own now. Well, there's a pretty cool little piece. And it's a toss-up sometimes on whether or not you want to clean these or kind of leave them as is. Sometimes when you clean them, a lot of detail pops out. Sometimes you lose it. It's the contrast of the dirt and the pottery that kind of makes it show up. So you kind of got to take a little bit of a gamble, but I think we'll wash that one up. May have ourselves a little bird point here. Nope, just a flake. But they, a lot of them are that size, or yeah, not a lot smaller than that. But you find them out here less than a half of an inch long sometimes. Maybe the next one. Here's a really nice sized piece of pottery. And that is really pretty cool right there. Kind of gives us a little bit of an idea of how some of these vessels were formed. It's neat. Those are neat pieces, those corner and edge pieces. And it's got some design, so we're definitely going to wash that one up. Yeah, I really like that piece. And a field plowed this much, that's a rarity. Oh my goodness, what a stunner. Look at that. Look at that beauty. Oh wow. I don't even have one this color. Look at that. Oh, that just made my day. Yeah, that's a chert, and I'm gonna say maybe heat treated. I don't know. I've just never found one that color. And the point type too. You know, I'm gonna have to take a look at that. That is just awesome right there. Yeah, it's got a little bang right there on the edge. Missing the tip. That's all I'm gonna complain about that. Let me wash that up. That's got some color to show us. Well, after talking to some buddies that knew a little bit more than I did, we're gonna call this a heat-treated piece. Now, the chert itself was probably a tan sort of chert. Not very common in my area, probably out of Tennessee, but when you heat treat it 400 to 500 degrees, kind of turns pinkish. Cool piece. And to go along with that is some of this pottery here. This is very thick pottery. The grit's a little bit different. No noticeable. There may have been a little bit of a brush design or something, but super old. Maybe Qualiphase pottery. We'll take a look at it and see if maybe we can get some sort of a type. Little lip of a bowl. All right, guys, I told you this pottery had a story to tell us, and I've laid it out in a way that I think will maybe help you best understand. So, what I want you to imagine is that we're going to dig a hole in the ground. This represents the surface of the earth. As we go down, we're going to encounter a certain type of ceramic. As you go deeper, the ceramic design and even the content of the ceramic can change. As you go deeper, it changes once again. So in that one field, in this one hunt, I encountered what I believe is at least 3 different phases of ceramics. The very first one, now, I'm in a plowed field. So all of these were laying on the surface, right? Or I'd never found them. I wasn't digging. All of these phases are jumbled up in a plowed field. But for an archaeologist, what they're looking for is undisturbed earth. So let's pretend that's what we have. As archaeologists dig down in western North Carolina, this is only true, these phases of this area. This doesn't work in Texas. They have different names and different phases. Different people made the ceramics. In western North Carolina, as they dig down, they're going to encounter first something called the Qualiphase. Qualiphase ceramics were characterized by something called complicated stamped pottery. It's called complicated stamp because it's quite artistic. What you're going to see is a lot of circles. You're going to see the up and down zigzag patterns, curves, lots of curves. That's actually incised pottery, not stamped. There's some more circle, very clear stamping there. In fact, so clear that if you look closely, you can actually see the wood grain from the paddle that was used to stamp that. Okay, koala. It's the youngest phase of ceramics that we have in western North Carolina. Now, as we go down deeper in the earth, something changes. Now, you may look and say it doesn't look that different, but it is. In complicated stamped, what you see are clear stamped lines. You don't run across terminated lines very often. And when I say a terminated line, think of a checkerboard. But when we get down here to this next phase, which is known as the Pisgah phase, all of a sudden we begin to see something called check stamping. Just a different form of design, okay? Now, this wasn't all the pottery that was created during these phases. They had some varieties, maybe some, you know, pots weren't even decorated at all, but this is the predominant design that appears. So check stamping inside of the Pisgah phase, but it's not alone, because there's also something called brushed Pisgah. And if you look real closely, what you see are very small lines towards the bottom. They run straight up and down, but look up here at the side. You see how they run off at an angle? And if you look over here, you have almost two different directions. Think of something like a stiff comb brushing on the outside of a wet ceramic, okay? This is a really cool piece. It's missing a little bit of a leg, which probably extended down maybe only that far. But as you can tell, that would have been a square-based vessel. I've never found anything like that. But it's represented well inside of the Pisgah phase. As we go down deeper, we're going to encounter the Conisty phase. This is that thicker pottery that I was talking about, the older stuff. And you can tell it was barely, well, they did some cord stamping and some things like that, but a lot of those pots were very plain. If we were to go down deeper, and I don't have anything deeper, anything older to represent it, we would encounter the Pigeon phase. And the Pigeon phase was really when ceramics began. It was the advent of ceramics. So this kind of covers the history of ceramics in my area. Any older than the Pigeon phase, you're getting into stone bowls. They weren't using ceramics. Now, you may have noticed a couple things up here that weren't ceramics, and those, of course, are little stone tools. I called this one a bird point in the video, and that was quite lazy of me. I don't think that's even a point. It may have been a little graver or something like that, but it's representative of a small triangle point. A lot of times artifact hunters call those bird points because we assume it was used only to take small game, and that's not the case. Those are actually true arrowheads. Artifact hunters often call whatever they find an arrowhead, and that's not an arrowhead. That may well have been just a blade, or it could have been a projectile point for an atlatl, but it wasn't used with bow and arrow technology. It's too old. We know that because bow and arrow technology was formed in between these two phases right here. And so in conjunction with the ceramics, we find a lot of small small triangular points. Now, as we go down deeper into the earth, get a little bit older, the point types begin to change. This is what I'm going to call the base to like one of the Garden Creek style points, and it is found in conjunction with both of these forms of pottery, giving us a good indication of its age. Now, all of this information isn't formed off of one dig site where archaeologists, suspect that they're on undisturbed earth, and they go, okay, well, this is obviously the way that things went. What they look is for it to replicate itself at a completely different site. So if they find 2 or 3 sites that are undisturbed and they see, as they go down in the earth, the same changes, then they can really confidently state that this is how the time passed, the passage of time with Native American ceramics. We know this is the youngest stuff, and this is some of the older stuff. Another sort of mistake that we can make is to assume that 3 different people groups made these potteries. Now, We don't know that that isn't the case. Native American tribes often warred and pushed each other out. It could have been, but it also could have been the same people group. And what we're looking at is just over a period of time, they learned different techniques. Their desires for what made something beautiful or valuable change. And so we kind of understand that, right? I mean, I wouldn't want to wear the shoes my dad wore in high school. They worked for him, but I want something a little different, right? I hope that makes a little bit of sense. I hope next time I'm out there hunting a little pottery, maybe you'll remember a little bit, have a little clearer understanding, and think about the story that little broken pieces of ceramic can teach us. Well, guys, if you are still sticking around after about 7 minutes of chatter, you've earned a reward. So, glad you stuck around. I found something today I've never found before. I was visiting a Native American site, listen closely, right outside of Franklin, North Carolina. Just did a little quick video of it and took a little walk, very short walk. And I looked under a tree, in a little cavity under a tree, and I found a geocache. Unfortunately, it was empty, all except for a little slip of paper. Nothing more disappointing than finding treasure that ain't there. So I remedied that. Guys, I loaded that geocache. I had history in the truck, usually do. And so I put some cool items in that geocache. Gonna give you that video clip now if you happen to be around Franklin, North Carolina. It's sitting out there waiting for you. And if you find it and you send me an email, maybe a video clip, I'll throw you in a video, or maybe just some pictures if that's all you want to send of you finding the geocache. I'll throw you in the next video. And if you do that, I'm going to send you a History Hound Detecting t-shirt. Okay? So, pay attention. Guys, I'm right outside of Franklin, North Carolina. There is a great little pull-off. You'll miss it if you're not looking. There's the main road right up there, but I'm at the Cowie Mound site, and this is just some really good information here. Cowie is a word that was derived from the Cherokee word meaning deer town, Cowie. And Cowie was a special place. There were a lot of trade routes kind of intersected here. This was a place where ideas were shared and new information and technologies to a certain extent were probably shared at places like this. And so the mound, unfortunately, is getting very hard to see. There's a lot of growth growing up around it, but I'm going to do my best to show it to you. So this is the Little Tennessee River. This large Native American town was right here on the banks of the river. And if you look through the trees, right there at the top, that lighter green, that is actually grass growing. And so you can tell there is a very large mound right in this area. So what is the mound and who built the mound? Well, the Cherokee didn't build the mound. They were not mound builders. Those mounds existed before they got here, built by the Mississippian people. We're not totally sure who built them, maybe somebody even before them, but here's what the Cherokee, how they utilized the mounds. And this was really cool. So William Bartram, he was a naturalist that traveled through the area in the 1770s, and he is the one that gives us a lot of information about Cherokee life, Native American life at that time. So check out this council house. Now, if you notice, it itself is dome shaped, and this would have gone right on top of the mound, kind of intended to blend in with the mound itself. But it's actually quite a structure. If you look, you see the road seating in there. These council houses would have seated several hundred people. And that's just incredible. You know, and so many times we get the wrong idea and the wrong impression of Native Americans. We don't think of them having, you know, organized forms of government, and they did to some degree. We don't think of, you know, very intricate structures like this being built, and they did. And technology. No, it wasn't the same as European technology, but it was extremely advanced technology in its own right. You know, much like we would look at the Egyptians, and, you know, we look at the pyramids being built. It's a stone structure. You know, it's not like they figured out steel structures or skyscrapers, but what they did figure out with the materials they used was incredibly advanced. And so it's the same with the Native Americans. Using the resources they had, the knowledge they had, they were masters of the resources that they had available to them. This is a really cool site right outside of Franklin, North Carolina. Beautiful little spot. I encourage you just to come, stop by, and you can sit here and, like I've been doing, just imagine all the life and activity that went on right across the river. All right, so I took a little trail away from the viewing area, still right here by the river. And you know me, I've always got my eyes down to the ground. And look what came out of the ground there. Little piece of chert. I'm sure there's all sorts of rules about leaving stuff, so we're going to put it right back in the dirt from which it came. But that's not the only thing that I found. Check out this tree. Standing here looking at this tree, and I looked at this crack right down here below this rock, and there's something in it. Could this be a geocache, or hopefully not drugs or something? But the way it's taped up, I think it may be a little geocache. And it feels empty though. It's not empty. What do we got? This is cool. I don't think I've ever found one of these. Probably just in the list, I would say. Cache by Steph Gigantino. Well, Steph, there tweren't nothing in the cache. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go get something out of that truck and stick it in the cache. And maybe one of you guys can come along and find it. How about that? I'll tell you this much. It's close to the Cowie what would I call this? Viewing station. That's what we'll call it. Okay. I'm gonna put something inside there. And I'll put it right back under this rock for the next person. But I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to put in there. If you want to know, come find it. All right. The cache is now refilled with, I don't know, let's say a good 700 years of history. Whoever finds it's going to be happy. It's got some cool stuff in it. Get out there and hunt for it. Maybe somebody will get turned on to a little history after they find it.